the place where the nefesh bahamis, the animal soul, resides, which again, an animal soul comes from klipas nega. B'chol ish Yisrael, by every yid who belev, is in the heart. We know, in general, there's the two most vital organs, which are the mind, the brain, and the heart. The animal soul is situated in the heart. For that matter, b'chol lasmali, but in the heart itself, Alter Rebbe points out, also it's medically proven, that there's there in the heart itself, there's two sides of the heart. The side which there is overwhelmingly filled overwhelmingly with blood, and then the other, which is the left side of the heart. The right side of the heart is more where there's the oxygen. So, now the Rebbe says the animal soul is in the left side of the heart, which is full with blood. Uksiv k'adam nefesh, like it says, the blood is the soul. As we mentioned in the first chapter, the Rebbe says that's the connecting. In other words, we know blood is the source of vitality. Man, you need a certain amount of blood in order to live. Man cannot live without blood. What's it with blood? Why this liquid, or why not anything else? Because blood carries soul power. The intermediary, or the connecting point between the spiritual force, and not in the context of spirituality as in the context of holiness, but literally the spiritual force which makes a man live, it's transmitted to the body via the blood. Blood is the vessel, the vessel which contains, or rather works well, or is the recipient of the soul energies in the blood. And that's why a person has to have a certain amount of blood in order to live. Because if Chasam doesn't have the blood, he doesn't have that recipient of that transmitter. In other words, that the soul cannot come in and be manifest within the body without the blood. So the blood, so when you think about an animal soul, which is again the soul which gives man the ability to, or gives man his life, his feeling, his motivation, and naturally we're talking about motivation to make the body function, which is naturally associated with an animal soul, to eat, to drink, whatever the person, however he functions. When that soul enters, in other words, what's the situation? What is the state? Where is that situated? It's naturally situated in the place which there is mostly blood, which is in the heart, which in the heart itself, it says the left side of the heart, which is overwhelmingly blood, because that is what brings the soul energy. You know, it's that energy which makes the person alive, makes it function and manifest in the body. So so where would it be? It would be where the place where the most of it, the place which is majority, which is a concentration rather of blood. Ki adam hu nefesh. So now that it's in the heart, now we understand why the animal and heart really go together, because a person's covets, his lusts, his temptations, it's all heart expressions. Now we understand why is the animal soul has such a why does the animal soul have so much all about, or rather it's all about, its makeup is temptation, its makeup is desires, it's driven, taivus, lust, or ispirus, excitement, kas, spilus is excitement, but ispirus is the pride, pe'er comes into the person, the pride of all of himself, or anything which makes him feel good and happy, or similarly the kas, anger. These are all heart expressions. So now, why is the animal soul associated with all this? The answer is very clear, because that is where its base is. Its base is in the heart. Because its base is in the heart, therefore, it has. Therefore, when you think about the animal soul and you see how it's so synonymous with or associated with taivus, temptations, anger, or other negative emotional traits and characters, you understand why. Because that's where the animal soul is situated. With the main and any other similar negative character, emotional character trait. So, hein belev. It says that therefore it's associated with heart. Umei halev hein mispashtes b'chol haguf. From the heart, it mispashes, which means it expresses itself and it becomes manifest in the whole entire body. Again, need not to explain. A person has a taiva to eat. He has a temptation to eat. So he doesn't just stop with the temptation. He makes sure to go to this place where he could fulfill that temptation, to the fridge or anywhere else, in order to the store, to buy it, to consume it, to derive pleasure from it. In other words, the heart sends the message. It expresses itself in the entire body. Also, it also ascends to the brain. To think, to ponder in them, and also to find chokhmah in them, meaning that a person ultimately tries to rationalize everything that he does. He doesn't just say, okay, you know what, I have the nefesh Bahamis, so there's a part of me which is an animal, and I'm just going to be animalistic. He convinces himself, tries to make sense of his taivas. That notion of making sense of the taiva is, again, the expression of that, the nefesh Bahamis, which is situated in the heart. It expresses itself, and it sends its vibes and its messages to the whole entire body. In other words, how to execute that taiva. Also, it goes to the brain simply to make sense of his taivas. And that's very much parallel to the way the blood works. Blood is concentrated in the heart. The source of blood is in the heart. Umehalev, though, it doesn't remain in the heart. Mispashid l'cholei varim. It expresses itself. In other words, the heart comes through all the limbs. A person must have even the brain, which really too much blood is not good in the brain, etc., as we know, but because nothing really could live without blood, there's a bit of blood also goes to the head, medically. And here, you see over here that it's a bit, because the message of the animal soul is just, it cannot really be, the head cannot be full with the nonsense and taivas and desires of the animal soul. In other words, this is the accurate similarity to the blood. Just a bit of the blood goes to the brain. Similarly, the animal soul cannot shoot up to the brain and say, start really making sense of being animalistic, because there is no true sense of being animalistic. It just kind of tries to rationalize, just to put it, okay, after all, I'm a human being, and a human being, the difference of a human being and animal is in brain, and therefore he says, I'm not totally animal, I'm going to send a message to my brain, and the brain should make sense of my taivas. Now, if you think about it, the truth of the matter is that the animal itself also has that. It explains itself what it's doing, but by man it's much more. That idea comes about so much more, because after all, he's a human being, and much as he wants to, he knows it's an expression. If he knows or he doesn't know, because it's an expression of an animal soul within the human being, so he tries to be human with his animalistic taivas. So that's a clear similarity, that the main concentration of blood is in the heart. And from the heart, it passes through all the limbs, and a bit goes to the brain. That similarity. That's similarly when you're dealing with the nefesh Bahamis. It's all about heart. It's all about taivas. It's all about how to fulfill my taivas, my desires, my animalistic desires, my bodily desires. But again, it doesn't stay concentrated in the heart. It drives through the entire body, and a bit goes to the mind. Again, he tries to make sense of his. He tries to make sense of his taivas. So now, that is where the animal soul. That is where the animal soul is stationed. Where is the godly soul stationed? The place. Follow. It's the second page where it says on the bottom 2:4. It's pretty much just over the middle. It says, but the abode of the divine soul. So where is the nefesh Elikis? So that's where nefesh Bahamis is. Nefesh Elikis is a different station, set up different places. Where is the nefesh Elikis, godly soul, situated? Where is the godly soul stationed? The answer: it's not in the heart, or its main station is not in the heart. It has like a satellite station, it has a satellite base as well, but its main station is in the mind. For that matter, the godly soul is essentially intellectual. It doesn't do anything if it doesn't truly make sense. And again, not that it starts from emotion and, or in this case, like the Nefesh Bahamis, the taivas, the temptation, and tries to make sense of the temptation. Quite on the contrary. The godly soul begins with intellect. It's known the godly soul is essentially intellect. So it begins with something which, when you begin with intellect, ultimately, it truly makes sense. When you begin with it, when you try to rationalize, you try to make sense out of a negative lust and temptation, and say probably I'm doing the right thing, probably I'm driven into the right places, to the right places. So then mind is just a follow-up, or it just follows something. Is just, in other words, what's really playing out here is heart. He's just trying to make sense of something which is truly or solely heart. But we know that this is the superiority, the advantage of man over animal, that it's about the intellect, about mind, it's about the human dimension within myself. That should make the decisions, not my heart. For that matter, it's as a kelev. It's called, why is it called a kelev, a dog? It's kuli lev, it's all about heart. Kelev is a combination, it's all about heart. Adam, man, was gifted with mind, with brain. He doesn't do things because his heart desires. He acts upon his intellect, meaning to say he does things which make sense. Now, to who should it make sense to? So first thing, there's some things which are common sense. The Nefesh Elikis primarily, when we say it's situated in the mind, before even you introduce that godly energy which comes from the godly soul, which things are not only make sense, but they are godly as well, or primarily godly. But before anything, it's meichin. It starts with brain, which means there's nothing of heart which is mixed in, which could even be biased or could bribe the whole entire, the person and all his actions, because the heart desired, the heart bubbling and is determined to go in a certain direction. It doesn't start with heart. Nefesh Elikis, the godly soul is b'meichin sheberosh, the brain. Now, additional to the fact that it begins brain, so right away you see the Adam, the man, the superiority of man over any other created being, primarily animal. So right away you see this is godly. This is more structured because it begins from meichin. But additional to that, or you can say, namely, because it's a godly soul, and the godly soul, so the godly soul builds via the meichin, via the brain, a very godly, solid, godly message. The only thing is, we know that the person is not supposed to only remain godly with his brain. In other words, he should be cognizant about godliness, and his mind should be full of not to contemplate or ponder on anything else other than godliness. But that's not sufficient. The point of it also is that it should not only remain in the world of brain or the world of intellect, but it should also flow through the heart as well. A person should be excited about God, to love God, fear God. Love, fear, these are associated with the heart. And also not stop there. The point is also that it should flow through all the limbs and organs as well. That a person should not only, I think about you, I intellectualize godliness, I feel godliness. That's also not enough. I have to act godly as well. To do the mitzvahs, to daven, to be careful and scrupulous when you're dealing with an aveira, chas v'shalom. In other words, he has to make sure that godly energy flows through the entire system. But where does it begin? And that's very important. The important is the difference of this very stark difference between the animal soul and the godly soul. Where is that stationed? It's stationed in the heart, means it begins heart. It's already a no-no. The godly soul begins in the mind. Okay, that's a great start. And from the mind, umisham, from the mind, from the brain, mispashetes l'chol ha'evarim. It flows and it becomes manifest, and it expresses itself via and to all the limbs. Like again, the point of it, that everything should be godly. Not only is the person's seichel, not only his brain, but all the varim, all the limbs. And v'gam belev, b'cholol hayimani she'ein beidam. It also has a station, kind of like a satellite station, its initial, like you have the headquarters, then you have a branch here and a branch there. The headquarters is in the brain. But also it's important that the heart also gets excited, at least also additional to being excited about godliness. It has to have, the animal soul has to have a counterpart also. Not to get excited about animalistic or bodily ideas, but become excited about God. And if the nefesh elikis would only be situated in the brain, so the heart the excitement would only be associated with the animal soul. So it has to have a station there as well. And that's what the Rebbe says, it certainly does have a station. The only thing is, it doesn't have a station where the animal soul is, because that's the place where the blood is. When we said before, the place, the domain, the abode for the animal soul is in the left side of the heart, which is a concentration of blood. Because Ke'adamu HaNefesh, that's where the vitality, man, again, is able to function as a human being. But that's not where the godly soul is. Because the godly soul is truly in the heart, but in the right side of the heart. It's in the heart, and in other words, it would become clear and evident via its excitement with God. Excitement, again, i.e. heart, love, fear, etc., but not in the left side, but in the right side. Like it says, the pasuk says, Leiv chacham liyamine. The heart of a wise person is to the right. So the Alter Rebbe teaches it in the way he's explaining where the godly soul is, that the godly soul also has a station. It has a station in the heart, but what side of the heart? To the right. Vihi, and where is that expressed? Avas Hashem. Love to God. Love of God. Kirish Peshal Heves Misal Heves Belev, like a flaming engulfed fire, which is ignited, which engulfs in the heart of maskilim, of those who understand or intellectualize, mivinim, who understand, mizbeinin, midaitim, they ponder with their knowledge, with their mind, asher b'meichem, which is in their brain, b'davar ha'meirim sava, b'dvarim, with this information, which arouses love. So you see over here, the heart plays an important role. When the godly soul in the godly soul's expression, that it gets excited. In this case, it says in love to Hashem. Love is a godly expression. But because it begins in the mind, it's based on the information of the mind. That's the way the heart expresses itself. In other words, how is the heart going to love God? Because it gets the message of where the nefesh elikis, the godly soul, is basically stationed. In other words, its main station is in the brain. And we still don't say station. It's not like it's just like a little bit cubic. A cube or something you're putting in a certain place. You say its main station is in the brain, which means it utilizes its cognitive faculties in order to understand and appreciate and internalize this godly message, or godliness rather. So from there, when you understand something, like anything else, you understand something thoroughly and you understand it's a good thing, consequently your heart is driven to this which you understand. In this case, because he understands Dvarim HaMeirim Sava, the different information which arouse the love, so consequently he loves Hashem. Like it says, for example, we say every single day in davening, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. And what does it say after that? V'ahavta. Actually, in Baruch Shem, it's not written in the Torah itself, right? Baruch Shem, there's a reason why we add that Baruch Shem Kivod Malchus Levad, but right after in the Torah it says Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, V'ahavta, you should love Hashem. So the famous question, which is brought down from the Maggid, I think it's the Maggid, asked the question, how could you command on love? You can't command someone to love. It's incorrect. In other words, it truly doesn't exist. You could command somebody, despite you don't like to do this, do it anyways. You can command to do a mitzvah, to put on tefillin, put on mezuzah. I don't feel to put on mezuzah, do it anyways. You could command, right? The commander, commandee, and the command itself says that you just got to do it. Just do it. But you cannot command on love. Well, after you should love, or I love, so I don't need your command. And if I don't love, your command won't help me. So how could you say v'ahavta? So the Maggid says, the truth of the matter is, he says that this command begins one pasuk before. The pasuk before says, Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel. Hear meaning not only just listen with your ear. Understand. Yisrael means Yid, understand. Start accumulating the information of godliness which is presented to you and internalize it. Think about it for a few moments, a day. Understand really, in other words, not only just to know that you have that information, that you learned this in this chapter or something. In other words, stop for a moment, think about this information which you have accumulated or which you have learned about it. Stop and ponder on that. When you'll ponder on that, your brain will understand the beauty of a lukus of godliness. Consequently, v'ahavto, automatically you will love. Because when you understand something is good, the heart kicks in automatically. Again, and we mentioned this several times, it's not only with the godly soul. If I understand, for example, you see this phone, you don't even understand how it works, right? The smartphone, you heard about it or something, but it's not something which you're driven to it, till it comes to a certain point, and they say, this is something which could really help you. And you're told, and you're given a crash course, 15 minutes or 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and told how this works, how this phone works, what's the advantage of BlackBerry as an example. You start understanding, you're driven to it. It's not like you can say you love it, like you love another person or something. Obviously, love has different, there's other broad brackets for love. But love in the context, yes, you're driven to it. Because you see how much it contributes to your sanity, if you will. It contributes to your daily life, your schedule, your organizational skills, etc. So what made you driven to this is because you understood that it's a good thing. So this works across the board. Intellect produces emotions. Or conversely, we mentioned this as well. If you find out that something is dangerous, so you didn't know about it, and then they give you the details, they give you this paper, read this paper and find out that this and this, the subject, phone or device, whatever it is, it's dangerous. Right once you'll understand it thoroughly, right? Not that you could just memorize something by heart, you internalize the concept automatically. You're taking that which you understood as dangerous and you start distancing yourself from it. You could even use the word fearing it. But again, fear, it's not like fear when you're dealing with God, fear, it's more like in the context of reverence. But again, in this example, again, you start distancing yourself. You can even fear it. I don't want to get close to that. And if you are too close to that, you're intimidated by it. Why? Because you understood thoroughly that it's something which is not good for you. So you see over here that intellect produces emotions. Again, across the board, not necessarily when you're dealing with a godly soul. But here the Alter Rebbe is dealing with a godly soul because the godly soul is situated in the brain. Means to say that the first access to things, the first approach of the godly soul is intellect. And then you say it has a station in the heart. Obviously it has a station in the heart. Or it makes so much sense that it has a station in the heart, because when a person thinks about the greatness of Hashem, Shema Yisrael, Hashem, Elokeinu Hashem Echad, that Hashem is our God, Hashem is one, and again, not you just repeat words, lip service. You really understand, or you really ponder upon the information that you received with the vast explanation, or the many explanations you hear about the phenomenon of Hashem Echad, the oneness of Hashem, or the different levels of unity, God unity, which is explained in a number of places, Kabbalah and Siddur and so on, or in other places in Torah. So you think about it, right, that everything is Hashem, and Hashem is everything in Ein Levadi, whatever you're going to read. It's right away going to send a message to the heart, which is again the station of the godly soul, to love Hashem. And similarly, when this is love, to rejoice b'tiferes Hashem in the glory of God, v'hadar ga'enei, and the strength or the beauty of Hashem's ga'en, which is his strength. When the eyes of the wise, when the eyes of the wise individual, that the eyes of the wise, and when you're dealing with the expression, in other words, the Yid which uses his godly soul, which is the eyes which is in his head, which besides the fact we're talking about the physical situation, where the eyes are situated, is in the head, right? But he said there's a chacham eina bereisha. He foresees. In other words, he knows what to prioritize, what to focus on. And in this case, with the brain of his wisdom and understanding, look and gaze and ponder on the dearness of the Melech, which is the King, v'tiferes golose, and the glory of Hashem's greatness, adin cheker vein sof, which has no end, and beyond the scope of rationale, and on the scope of one containing it in his own seichel, in his own brain. Meaning to say, when you say adin cheker, it means it's not limited as much as we can understand. It's way beyond that. The Ein Sof, and it's Ein Sof Etachlis, and it's infinite. Like it's explained elsewhere. So that ignites the heart to love and fear or whatever the person ponders on. So here he gives a few Ava, Simchas Leva, V'Tiferes Hashem, and the different expressions of the heart. They all come from the clear and established and structured understanding of the brain. And so too, when you find other emotional expressions within the heart, it comes from the Chabad, which means the brain, the wisdom, understanding, and knowledge which exists within the brain. So here we see over here. So this is basically the setup is clear. The animal soul is situated in the heart, and from the heart it spreads and it flows through all the limbs. Again, the animal soul doesn't only have a lust and desire and drive to animalistic, and that's where to things which are animalistic and bodily, and that's where it stops. No, it moves on and sees how it can execute its animalistic drive. So it's in the heart, where there's the concentration of blood, which is the left side of the heart, and there it goes and it flows and it expresses itself throughout all the limbs. Also, it tries to make sense of its animalistic drives, so it sends the message to the brain. But it's all about heart. The godly soul is the other way around. It starts in the brain, as we mentioned again. The godly soul is essentially intellectual, and additional to the fact that the advantage of it is that things are much more true, much more clear, and the person's much more honest when he begins with the intellect as opposed to beginning with heart. So the godly soul, which is associated with the emes Hashem, with the truth of Hashem, is primarily situated in the heart, in the mind, in the brain. And again, additional to that, or again, namely, it not only it starts intellectually, but it's a godly soul, so it intellectualizes godliness, and from there it has its station in the heart, that the heart expresses itself with a love and fear, in other words, godly feelings, or emotions, which is associated with, as we be dealing with the 7 emotions, the love, the fear to God, the fear of God. Again, when we deal with fear, we're talking about the reverence, in the context of reverence, or Ava, love to Hashem, and so on, all the other 7 attributes. But also, the godly soul flows throughout all the limbs as well, because what does the godly soul want? And not only it should understand God and feel for God, it wants the person should use his hand. If it has a hand, it wants it to put on tefillin. If it has feet, it wants it to walk to shul and to walk to do a mitzvah. And so through all the other limbs should express themselves in one direction, in a godly direction, and live a godly life. That if every limb of the person, every organ, every limb, should ultimately carry out, execute the message of the godly soul, which starts again in the meichin, in the heart, in the brain, and then eventually it comes through the heart. Because when a person loves Hashem, he's running to do a mitzvah. He fears Hashem, he stays away from an Aveira. So ultimately, the godly soul wants every part of the person should surrender, or should be part of, or should live according to the way the godly soul explains it, which is ultimately live a godly life. Achine, as we have in the Parshas to come, it says now what is the Alter Rebbe is explaining over here that they're both, the animal soul and the godly soul, not only they're never at peace with each other. They're never at peace with each other, because as they both have their fronts, right? You have 2 kings, which could be have the territory on 2. There's a territory in between the 2 monarchs, the 2 kings, and they are basically not silent throughout their entire life. It could be because they each one wants to conquer that neutral territory. And how much of it does it want to conquer? When you're dealing especially in the yesteryears, the kings of the yesteryears, the monarchs in the yesteryears, that there was the idea of it is that they don't want to leave any part which should be associated with their counterpart, with the other king, with the other strength, the other country. It wants to conquer everything. And so to the other king, regarding this this neutral territory. It wants everything about this neutral territory to be surrendering to it. And not only that it should, again, be called the boss of this territory, but the currency, the people, everything should be completely part of its domain, its country, and the way its country is run. And so the same thing, the Nefesh Bahamis, the godly soul and the animal soul, it's not that, okay, I have my spot, you have your spot, and we're going to stand in peace. Not at all. And based on what the Alter Rebbe said before, the animal soul sends its message to the brain to make sense. Now, if you have a brain, I want you to make sense of my heart desire. So what does it want to conquer? It wants to conquer the brain as well. And it doesn't only want to be just a pumping, bubbly desire, heart which desires, and the animalistic and the bodily, the animalistic. You have a foot, run to the bakery instead of running to shul. Or if you have a hand, just use your fingers to waste your time on the computer because that's what you want to do. Or grab a good sandwich if you're not hungry and eat it because you have a desire for it. In other words, this is based on this premise, which the Alter Rebbe writes in the first part of the page. We can understand what the Alter Rebbe says. Each one wants the entire body. Because when you say the animal soul is situated in the heart, what does the Alter Rebbe continue? It sends its message to all the limbs of the entire organs and limbs of the entire body. Not only that, even the brain, which it really doesn't have such a connection, it's animalistic. What does an animal have to do with brain? But it also sends a message to the brain because it wants the brain to be also not to think or ponder of godly. No, you have a brain, try to make sense of my heart, covet, and lust and desire. And conversely, when the Alter Rebbe dealt with the godly soul, also said the same thing. It starts in the brain, but it has a stasis. It has a base in the heart. But the Alter Rebbe says also base in the heart, and it wants to mispash. It means to say it wants to come through, flow through its godly energy through the entire system as well. So when you're dealing with one person which has one system and each one wants the entire system to be surrendered to it, they'll never be at peace by definition. When you're dealing with two different systems, it's okay, you take that and I'll take that. But when you're dealing with one body, a person has only one body. In other words, he has two hands, but it's all parts of one body. And when you say the animal soul wants everything, it literally wants everything that the godly soul should not even be able to enter in no form or fashion. And the godly soul wants the other way around. Godly soul, as Alter Rebbe says over here, it's one system. I want every part of this system to be godly and to live a godly life. So when you're dealing with, and the fact is that they're both, as long as if it's a tzaddik, which a tzaddik got rid of his nefesh bahamis, so it's already a little more at peace. But you're talking about the average person when he has an animal soul in the heart, and he has a godly soul in his meichin, and each one wants the whole thing. Inevitably, or automatically, you're dealing with a struggle. And that's what the Alter Rebbe brings it. We'll stop over here basically. The Alter Rebbe brings this pasuk. What did Yaakov Avinu, when Rivka went to find out, she wanted to translate what's going on within her. She had twins, right? Yaakov and Esav, and she was very confused and bewildered by this new experience of twins. And she realized also, when she was, the Gemara says, she used to walk with Milaveda Zara, she felt this one was trying to jump, and she realized there's something exceptional, unusual happening over here within her pregnancy. So she went to seek Hashem's advice, and what was the message she got? Which means you're going to have, these are two physical brothers, or brothers which are biological brothers, but they have two different messages, and they have two different messages to convey. One is Yaakov, one is Esav. As Rashi says, they don't stand with unity, they'll never stand with unity, because it's or going to be a world of Yaakov, or it's going to be a world of Esav. If it's Esav, Esav wants everything. If it's Yaakov, Yaakov wants everything. Because you're dealing with one world. And what is going to be manifest in the world? Yaakov's message with his godly, which is godliness, or Esav's message, which is anti-godliness. What does it say when Mashiach is going to come? For example, Olam Meshim B'Hartzin Lishpeita says that's the ultimate, the utopia of everything is that Yaakov will triumph, that the entire world, not only our world, our Beis HaMikdash, but Olam Meshim B'Hartzin Lishpeitas Har Esav, to take dominance of the mountain of Esav, not only the mountain of Yerushalayim. Because the point of Yaakov Avinu is what the God's message was to Rivka, Ulei Milei Miyamot. One is going to rise to the top, the other one's going to go there. They cannot be. It's like a slide. the slide. One's up and one is down. Can't ever have both up, you can have both down. That's the message she got, Yaakov and Esav. So in the microcosm, within the body of man, it's one system. Each one wants everything, and each one wants everything. There's a constant conflict. Okay, Beth Hashem will continue in this, analyzing this conflict, God willing. By then I'm sure we're all going to triumph and be victorious. Mashiach is going to come here, but this is where we'll stop this week.